How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Agave and Cactus Talk podcast. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the different ways that I'm going to be trying to roast my agave on my farm, because a lot of people are asking me about a stone oven that I'm building right now. And, I've had several ovens in the past that have, just been continuously adapted and refined, and I'll literally tear it apart and rebuild it, But the first oven, I guess, that I had on the farm was just a giant fire pit made out of stone and concrete that I made. What I didn't like about that was that the concrete, would always be chipping off at high temps and, kind of just exploding and going everywhere. Not like anything super serious, but just little pebbles, would be shooting. And that shit's annoying because I would like to sit around the fire and enjoy it. So that fire pit is about a 4x4 circle, and then it's like 2 feet. No, maybe a foot and a half deep. So I could do a couple piñas in there, chopped up. It was chill. Worked for the moment. And then I moved on to, in-ground pits. Started out with like a little 3x3, or 3 cubed, And that one I really liked, out of stone. It's amazing. It gives great mineral flavor to the agave from the stone. It allows you to use different types of logs and stuff and be unique on each roast, which is cool because I can alternate, because I've cut so many trees and I have it all stored here. I got olives, ficus, eucalyptus, pines. I can even roast with agave and cactus if I really wanted to. I have a bunch of dried trunks of it. But those all impart different flavors when you're roasting above or underground, right? With that. And, it's funny because I'm from Jalisco, right? So, all these styles are kind of like a Oaxaca style or some shit, like a mezcal style. And, which is fine. But, I would just use what I had around me. And then, I was building a stone little cabin that after a while, I stopped building it because I was just like, I want to build a cabin in another way that's a little bit more structurally, strong, so I could put a second and a third floor. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do with this building? It's like 30-40% finished. And it's probably got 60, 70 tons of rock inside that building. It's straight rock, number 5 through number 8 rebar, and it's on concrete columns that are about a foot wide, going down about 5 feet, and then it's on a concrete pad that's about 8 inches deep. And then all that concrete's 5,000 psi. So that shit's built like a fucking fortress. Like, my homie crashed the ATV into it, didn't move. Ridge crest earthquake happened, shit didn't move. All my wood buildings moved like crazy. None of them fell though, which I'm proud of, because I built all this shit. But the stone one, I was like, damn, I want to build my house out of this now after that earthquake, because I saw how well it just does with earthquakes, right? But anyways, that building is going to be Jalisco style, like pre-brick and all that, where they used just stone and steam and, logs and all that to cook above ground with all that steam, the piñas, right? Roast them up. So instead of a brick oven here, we'll be doing a stone oven and using the fuel source from, the natives that are growing here, or stuff that I recycle from, being an arborist, landscaper, farmer. all that good shit. But so that's the, I got the fire pit, I got the in-ground, I got the big old Jalisco stone house, right? But the one everybody's been asking me about that inspired this podcast is I'm building a stone oven that the first 4 feet of it in height, it's going to be 5 by 5. So 5 feet wide, 5 feet long, and then it's 4 feet tall. That's the first part. That's all rebar steel, which is steel, concrete, and spec mix and stone, right? So all the stone is native here, all the steel is recycled, all the concrete was recycled from older projects too. But now I've bought a bunch of new because, you run through it when you're doing that stuff. So yeah, the first 4 feet will be all stone, and then we're going to be building a pyramid above that, essentially, that will be adobe. So we'll be building like a normal adobe oven. Like essentially that stone at 4 feet is going to have a concrete platform, right? Like 4 inches, all recycled steel and, new concrete that's hella strong. And then that shit will support the adobe portion of this oven, which will be a 5 by 5 adobe oven, right? Or like a 4 by 4 feet, maybe. Because, I'll tell you right now, our goal is going to be, me and my girl Nori, our goal is in building this to make the adobe oven, and then on top of it build in a kind of like a facade, of a Mayan pyramid, a step pyramid. And then we're going to decorate all the steps. And so it's going to be a real piece of art, that. But then we're going to be able to bake our own bread. We're going to be able to, we got a bunch of buckwheat that grows native here, so we can make buckwheat bread, which is really healthy and good tasting. And, we're going to be able to roast a whole bunch of agaves in that too, right? And use a lot of the recycled wood and native plants that are growing here as fuel sources, right? So stoked about that oven. That's going to be the first completed oven that I'm satisfied and I'll leave like that, right? We're working on the stone Jalisco style oven, which is right now, it's about 15 feet by 20 feet, and it's almost 10 feet tall at this moment, but we're finishing the outer walls, and interior walls will be a lot of fire clay and adobe, hopefully. But yeah, that has been put off to do other stuff because a lot of the piñas that I'm getting are a small amount, and I can manage them in these smaller ovens. So after I finish that adobe stone art oven, which is going to be like this step pyramid with a lot of art on each step, like I mentioned, we're going to put like Maya well and different things on there probably. I'm going to finish my in-ground pit, which I've built now 4 of them. A 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 5, and now a 6 by 6. And the 6 by 6, I finally settled on that stage. I'm going to build another one later. 1 second. Oh, I'm going to build another one later. But the thing is that, I want this, the one later will be a 15 feet wide by 15 feet wide, 10 or 12 feet deep. But right now I'm going to rebuild the one I had, which is a 6 by 6 circle going 6 feet deep. And I'm going to rebuild it in the same spot because I got 2 feet of drainage rock right there, which is great because it's something that I learned, after building a few of them, that it sucks dick to clean these out. So if you have like 2 feet of gravel, you could just get a fucking pressurized hose and hose all the ash down. You collect the larger portion, and then the smaller portions, you just hose it down. It goes into the gravel, goes into the soil. Easy cleanup, which is great. That was one little innovation I did. But then, I made it real deep, and then I made it out of stone, so it was able to cook shit in just a few hours because all the wind was coming in at like 40 miles an hour through the stone, making this fire go fucking nuts. I have to be feeding it like crazy. And I actually want I was cooking some agaves in 2 to 4 hours, and I actually want to cook them a lot slower. They tasted great. I ate a bunch of them, distilled a bunch of them. But you have to be watching the fire a lot, so I'd like to slow that down so I don't have to be as attentive. So, yeah, what I'm going to do is use some clay, adobe, and spec mix to cover about 75, maybe 90% of the holes. So it'll be structurally like a stone masonry wall. It won't be dry laid anymore, which will now allow me to not only be 6 by 6, wide and then 6 deep, but I'm going to go a whole other 4 feet tall. So it's going to look like this giant thing that I'm going to have to load with a ladder. But I don't care because I, have learned a couple things there that I want to do, right? So eventually this shit will be about 10 feet deep. I'm thinking I'm going to take it 4 feet above the ground there. And that will give me about 60, square feet kind of space that I can utilize, which allows me to put a couple tons in there, which is great. And that's going to be the small oven. We'll just double up that size for the big oven, and we'll just keep it going like that as we go down the line, But the goal is to have the Jalisco style above ground oven, like, my ancestors and shit, to have the in-ground, a couple different stone ovens, more of a Oaxaca Mescalero style. And then we're going to have the fire pits. We're just going to improve those. I got to think a little bit about the style and stuff. But even that, for a quick couple piñas to cook or to distill, it's not the worst thing ever. I tell people use what you got. If you just got a fucking oven or you got like a little pizza oven at your house, use that. You could cook agave in it. The stone is just my favorite way of doing it because I believe that minerals are being imparted on that agave. So, and it allows the temperature to move really nicely. It maintains the heat well. Doesn't allow it to get so cold. All of these things, I know they do a lot of brick in Jalisco, but just not a fan of it, to be honest. There's a lot of poorly made brick. Yeah, that's one issue, but it just doesn't move the heat as well. It's not as earthquake proof. It's not as structurally stable. There's like a whole bunch of reasons, a stone roasting house will last your family 500 years, multiple generations, whereas a brick one, after so many uses, they're having to replace them in just a few decades, so while stone may take a little bit longer, it's a much better product, in my opinion. Yeah, I tell people that, everybody really just recognizes roasting for the whole, let me try to, cook this guy up so I can smash him up and get some juices to distill, right? But, whatchamacallit, roasting also is kind of like a barbecue, how every person, barbecues their meat, it all tastes different, right? Well, it's the same with the agave and the cook. It's like every cook is going to have their way of cooking that agave, and I would say they know best, because it's like I say my way is the best, but for me, other people have their way that they think's the best, and they know how to make it the best, right? So use whatever way you feel comfortable with to make something that you like to drink, right? Because there's no use having a way that everybody might approve of if it doesn't create a spirit that you enjoy. But yeah, I love roasting up agaves to eat them, and it's one thing a lot of people don't really mess with. There's agaves that are sweeter. Sweet to bitter. Sweet or bitter. You know, there's agaves that, man, it just, their flavor profile's all over the place, man. It kind of reminds me of, like, apples or, like, you know, some type of fruit like that. But every single agave tastes freaking different and has their own unique characteristics, you know. My favorite's agave Vilmoriana. I kind of like those bitter tastes. But agave atenuada, those things I think I've mentioned on the podcast taste like pickles when you roast them. Fucking amazing, man. You know, but there's so many agaves that, you know, you try them and you're just like, what the fuck? This should taste like a squash or a pumpkin, and you would have never really figured that. But, you know, those flavors are there. It's real cool. But yeah, each roasting, you know, infrastructure from the roast pit to how they're cooking it to the agave obviously is going to have a lot of effect on how this stuff comes out. But yeah, that's a, you know, hopefully update for all you peeps that have been asking about that little agave roasting oven, and it's almost about 50% complete. And that's because we've got a bunch of ovens being built at the same time. And it's just me as the mason. And my girl helps me too, but, you know, sweet Nori, she's always real helpful. But, point is, you know, we take it slow and steady. And there's no rush here. If we got some piñas that we're not ready, you know, to roast and stuff, we always can give them to the goaties if we're building. You know, what I want to do later on too, now that I'm thinking about this, is, you know, I'm trying to build me some stone and adobe or clay fermentation tanks underground that I can kind of cover with something to keep the temperature constant and stable underground for consistent fermentation. But we'll see where that goes, you know, the whole stone fermentation tank. It'll probably have to be, like I said, a combo with the adobe. But, hey, that's all I got for today. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and now you understand a little bit about the different oven setups we have around the farm and are working on. But if you got any questions on agave or cactus or want me to cover any topics, you know, feel free to leave a comment or DM me. Farming and Gardening in California on Instagram, Agavero Californiano, on TikTok, YouTube. Now we got agaverocaliforniano.com, which has a lot of really great info on all the different agave and cactus that I'm beginning to, you know, sell in bulk and stuff. And these plants, you know, a lot of the info online is more from a landscaping perspective, whereas I wanted to provide a lot of info useful for farmers and for potential entrepreneurs, right? So if you go and check out, for instance, at agaverocaliforniano.com, you'll see in the top right corner a little tab that, you know, you can click and you can hit the plants. And you can hit any plant, you know, like, for instance, Fucurea, Foetida, Mediopicta, and it'll tell you everything from, you know, the cold and hot hardinesses of it, you know, whether it takes a lot of water, low water, where it's excelling, you know, the potential uses for it, bricks for it, all of these different things, right? The bricks is the sugar content level once again, but all of these different things that are pertinent to an entrepreneur or a you know, ag businessman or a farmer, so or even farm manager, right? So or consultant or all that. You know, I thought San Marcos Nursery had the best stuff, but they're really looking at stuff from a landscaping perspective, and now they're out of business. So, you know, I kind of just assumed the role of trying to take up the great, you know, help that they've done over the past decades for all of us here in Southern California. If it wasn't for San Marcos, we would have a much lower understanding of agave and cactus, that's for sure. And they've helped a lot of us agave and cactus nerds know what to do with our plants and stuff. But I give an example here. It's like a lot of plants, they might be listed there like a mission to Mars, only growing is 2 feet wide, and I've seen these bitches 8 feet wide. And I'm like, you know, when it's in a farm or when it's in a garden, they are very different in how they grow, especially because one is being actively managed usually. So, you know, take that into account. But yeah, anyways, to summarize, Agave Californiana will help you with a lot of your farm journey and goals, hopefully. And I wanted to provide this service free, obviously. You know, obviously you could buy plants on there, but it's like by emailing us and stuff. But the real goal was to provide a lot of this information and articles and data information on plants. Because a lot of people are beginning to charge for courses and for memberships and all this bullshit around agave and cactus. And the industries are too young. We really need to be trying to teach new farmers, not trying to fucking profit off of them. So this is a way I think will help a lot of people out. But yeah, Steve out. Have a good one, guys.